Well, happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the Garden Life. Today, it's all about hot weather gardening because it's supposed to be in the hundreds this week, and I'm going to try to do whatever I can for my garden to prepare for the really let's just say brutal temperatures ahead. Brutal temperatures ahead. We're also going to fix something. Stuart, we left out a whole segment of the house tour last week. We did not show you the dining area. We shot it in different sections and we left a whole section out. So many of you commented that you wanted to see the dining table. And anyhow, long story short, we will remedy that this week and show you a glimpse of that section that we were remiss in showing you last week. And finally, I've got a fun project going on inside. Well, I'll just show you what it is, but let's say it's about Christmas in July. So there you go. Stuart, what do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, what is the solution to a brown lawn in summer when temperatures exceed the century mark? Well, our Bermuda grass often, it actually loves the heat, but it will start browning when it gets very, very hot and when Mother Nature turns the tap off. So one thing that you want to make sure to do, whether or not you're using a gasoline-powered, electric-powered, or in my case, muscle-powered lawnmower, is that you you raise the level of the mower itself so that you don't cut off as much grass. You want the grass to be able to grow longer in between different mowing sessions. That helps to shade the roots. It keeps the green surface, which is the new growth, intact so that it stays green instead of those brown roots below it. And it really, really is effective, and it also helps conserve water. So what do you do if you're like me and you feel like it starts looking a little bit ragged when you let it get too long? Well, here's what I do with my handy dandy reel mower. You could do it with any kind of mower, and boy has this been popular. Two men drove by yesterday, stopped me and asked me about it and where they could get it, and I sent them to my shop where I have my favorite gardening products.
They asked the right person, didn't they?
Yeah, because I couldn't remember exactly, but I digress. So one of the things that I do is I let the interior grow up longer, and then so that it looks tidy, a little bit more tailored and well kept, which I think is one of my signature touches, is a nice clean edge. I just mow around the perimeter. So that way the edges are shorter, it looks nice, but the inside is allowed to grow taller and remains greener. And am I proud of the way that the turf has really filled in? And I did not have to resod it. I didn't have to replace it. We just tackled the weeds, a lot of it done manually with my hori knife. And we fed it with an organic application of Milorganite, and I think it really is starting to look good. Stuart, you noticed that it
looks
practically looks almost intact. And if you go back and look at some of our previous videos, you'll realize that what was here was not such a much. It was pretty, it was pretty bad. So that is, I guess, those are my two mowing tips. Start mowing higher. Start, if you want a tailored edge, you can always edge more frequently. Even if you don't mow more frequently, you can edge more frequently, and you can do like I did, and that is just mow the perimeter and let the interior grow taller.
Sneaky.
Now in the first tip, this is an instance of do as I say, not as I do, because we wanted to get out here first thing in the morning before the sun got too high in the sky. Consequently, there was still a lot of dew on the lawn. Ideally, do not mow your grass when it is wet, because that provides greater opportunities for disease and fungal issues to attack your lawn. But because we're trying to shoot this before it's 100 later today, we did it in the morning, and there was still a little bit too much dew and too much moisture on the lawn itself. So that's another tip. When you mow your lawn, make sure that the turf is as dry as possible. Now on for our number 2 tip. I don't know about you, but I have found that it seems to me that pests and disease arrive at the same time that the extreme temperatures do, which is just, well, let's just say it adds insult to injury. So one thing that I try to do is, to the extent I can, reduce those kind of pest and disease pressures on the garden. And one way to do that is by pruning back some of your perennials and deadheading them if they have already blossomed and now are looking less than their best. So here's an example right here. I've got a stand of this beautiful purple salvia here. I can't tell you exactly what variety it is because it was a gift from someone. Now, I could come in here on an individual basis and I could just clip off each one of those dead blooms. But in this case, I really want to not only remove the dead blooms, but I want to get a little bit better air circulation in here because it's very still, it's very humid, and those are the perfect conditions for the advancement of disease and pests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of my long-bladed pruners. Now, if you can't find any of the Barnell, or if they're a little bit too expensive for your price range, then I highly recommend these Akasuni Precision length long-bladed hedge shears. And I like them because it takes a lot less time to do this than it does if I came out here with scissors and I tried to individually deadhead. But the point of this is I'm going to come through, and instead of individually removing the flowers, which I know are going to fry shortly anyway, I'm just going to come out here and I'm going to take off like just the entire top third of the plant itself. And yes, I am probably sacrificing a little bit of the color that exists, but in this case, I don't care because I know that those blooms aren't going to last long anyway, and I do want them to start putting out a flush of new growth and new blooms. Now you'll notice that I could have cut it back even farther. I could have cut it back, and if the temperatures were cooler, I might have cut it back, oh, say, to just about 3 inches above the ground. But I'm not doing that now. Why? Because I want to leave a little bit of the foliage intact.
How does the temperature affect why you should or shouldn't do it?
Why I should or shouldn't do it? Well, first of all, the blooms, when it gets to be 105, they're not going to last long in that heat. So I might as well go ahead and remove them now anyway. And in addition, only about 20% of that plant was blooming. The rest of it needed to be deadhead. So instead of going in there individually with each separate flower, that would have taken me a long time. This is just a more efficient way to do it. I could have gone down even farther, but you'll notice that I'm leaving, oh, a good 6 inches on the plant itself. And I'm doing that because I want the foliage, the existing foliage, to kind of shade out the root zone of the perennial itself. And that's true with almost anything that I am pruning right now. By the way, do not prune your boxwood. Don't prune any kind of plants that you think are delicate, that might put out a new flush of growth that isn't tempered to the soaring heat, sun, and high temperatures, because that will just ensure that that new growth will brown almost immediately. So let the foliage that's on the exterior that's a little bit tougher and a little bit more used to the sun stay in place. So let's move on to another example. Well, am I glistening yet, Stuart? Because
Yeah,
it's really getting
I think we both
steamy.
are.
It's really getting steamy out here. Well, I am surrounded by crazy pink echinacea from the Southern Living Plant Collection. These are so dear. They bloom, and I think they bloom more profusely and a little bit lower, so I don't have to stake them or anything. But I'm not only surrounded by these pink coneflowers, I'm also surrounded by lots of pollinators. You can see bees, even some wasps.
Yeah, I see a couple wasps.
Yeah, I'm just going to ignore them and they will ignore me. But you can see why we want to increase the air circulation between some of these plants. And here is one of the issues. First of all, I want to cut these back because these blooms are past their prime, and I want them hopefully to put out a new flush of not only leafy growth, but also blooms. But you can also see how crowded all of these are. Now, if the temperatures were a lot cooler, a lot more benevolent, I wouldn't worry about that too much, but I know that very soon, actually already, spider mite is going to set in. And because they are so close together, because they just are sitting too close on the plane, one disease can affect another one. One pest can affect another one. So what I want to do, even though this looks lovely now, even with some of these dried salvia heads, is I want to improve the air circulation between each one of these salvia plants. And here's an example of one that I just did. I cut this back a few days ago, probably a little bit more dramatically than I would have cut it back today. I would have left a little bit more leafy growth on there to protect the shade, or to give it shade. One thing that I noticed was that some of the leaves are starting to show signs of spider mite, and I want to take care of that as best I can. So I'm going to remove any of the foliage that looks to me like it has some spider mite hijackers. And then in the cool of the morning, actually it's almost a little too sunny to do this now. I should have done it before daybreak or even at night. But nevertheless, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this.
What are we spraying it with?
We're spraying it with Natria neem oil, which attacks spider mites. It also attacks whiteflies and avids. You could also use an insecticidal soap or some other kind of organic measure. I'm going to make sure that I get from the top, but I'm also going to make sure that I get the underside of the leaves as well, because that's typically where they like to hide. So very methodically, I'm going to go through the garden when it's a little bit cooler, and I'm going to cut back all of these mounds. It will make the garden look tidier, but more importantly, it will increase the space, the negative space in between each one of these perennials, and it will allow for greater air circulation and maybe a little bit of a breeze to travel through. Well, when gardening in extreme heat, and by the way, thoughts and prayers and good vibes we are sending to everyone in Texas and parts of Oklahoma that have been suffering from this extreme heat for, gosh, a couple of weeks now. So I'm really thinking about you, because I know, as fearful as I am about their arrival, you guys have been experiencing it already. Okay, another thing. Sometimes we need to be content in the dead of summer with a garden that may not be beautiful, though right now I would say this still looks pretty smashing. But maybe a garden that doesn't look beautiful because flowers, veggies, things in general just are going to kind of give it up and say, okay, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not putting out any new growth. I'm not going to look my best. I'm not going to dress up for you. So maybe we need to be content with just the fact that we can have a well-groomed and tidy garden that is an environment that will ensure as little problems as possible, and then we'll wait for temperatures to mitigate and conditions to improve. improve. So another thing that we can do to improve not only the looks of our garden, but also air circulation and remove anything that might potentially be an issue, and that is cleaning up garden debris. So this is the instance where so many of you have said, oh, Linda, why don't you carry your bucket with you when you are pruning and when you are weeding and such? And this is an example of when you want to have that, because I am just going to do some garden grooming. I'm going to continue to weed, but I'm also going to remove any kind of dead foliage that might take up space. It might prove to be a vector for pests. It's unsightly, and its removal will just give me better air circulation down here. So I'm just going to go to and do this a section at a time, you guys. It's too hot and it's really not safe for you to be out here for any great length of time. So just do it section by section. One of my tips sometimes I say is just do 4 foot by 4 foot gardening. Just do a 4 by 4 square. Go inside, drink some tea, sit in the AC, and later when you just can't stand to be inside anymore because you are a gardener after all, then go outside and do another small section. Well, Stuart, at this very moment, I can feel the sweat trickling down the middle of my back. When it is this hot, it's important that we gardeners not become completely demoralized by what this heat is doing to our spirits and to the garden itself. So we need to do things that will ensure that we have something to look forward to, or that remain beautiful no matter what. And in this case, my solution to that, having something to look forward to and look beautiful no matter what, are planting, or I should say seeding, some things that I know can really tolerate the heat and direct sun earlier in the spring, so that it comes into its own about the time that the century mark hits. So in this case, I have planted this cleome. This is the old-fashioned cleome. I got it from my friend Gail. It's in beautiful shades of pink. It actually loves the heat, and it harmonizes beautifully with the crazy pink echinacea in the foreground, but also the celosia. Can you see this here, Stuart?
Yeah, I'll have close-ups for them too. But yeah.
That's a perfect color echo that is beginning to bloom in sync, in orchestration with the other things that are blooming that also love the heat. So I've got some white / chartreuse gomphrena coming up. I've got some hot pinky purple, and it really looks beautiful and it loves the heat. Now, one thing that I am periodically doing is, because I want this also to have some good air circulation, I am not letting my plants boss me, and periodically I come out here and I will clip off some of the foliage that looks a little bit ratty and tatty, that might be blocking or growing into or impeding or detracting from the beauty of what surrounds it, and just selectively removing some of the foliage. By all means, it is in no way is it going to hurt the performance of these plants. So I'm going to remove it again to improve appearance, improve air circulation, and also letting this stand that loves the hot weather have its time in the sun. Now, a lot of you have said, oh my goodness, this cleome, it's going to self-seed and it will become your worst nightmare. Well, again, don't let your plants boss you. It only becomes a nightmare if I allow it to do so. So I'll make sure that I deadhead it before it goes to seed, and I will just judiciously and very intentionally weed out whatever does germinate in the spring and I don't want it to. I just remove it, because any plant, even if it's a real plant and not a weed, is a weed if it's not where you want it. So that's what I'm taking into consideration. But let me talk about a couple of other things of always making sure that you have something beautiful and also something to look forward to. as you're enduring these extreme temperatures? Well, one thing that I look forward to are some of the herbs, maybe even some of the vegetables that just shrug off the heat. They just don't care. And some of those I have in my window box, which I think is really looking beautiful right now. Look at those tomatoes, Stuart, those sun gold tomatoes.
I'll get them a wide shot real quick and then I'll come look at the tomatoes.
Yeah. And one thing that I have done, again.
Where are the tomatoes?
Right there.
Oh, I see them
in the
now.
shade. Yeah, they're beautiful.
Wow.
There's some there, and look, there's some starting on this side. They're cascading over the edge. They're actually, unless you get on top of the window box, they just look like more or less foliage from a distance, overshadowed by how beautiful the lantana and the scaevola look, which do love the hot temperatures, but I fully anticipate that even they will start to struggle once it gets up to 102 to 105. But despite that, I know that the peppers will continue to perform because they love the heat. The basil that I have planted in other areas will continue to perform. And that gives me something that I can come out and harvest and enjoy even in these extreme temperatures. So they're looking really beautiful right now. And if I, at the first hint of any kind of problem on the foliage, for example, right here, I don't see a problem, but I do see that this is starting to grow into this boxwood. I'm not sacrificing, well, maybe I see a few there. Let me pull this out. You see there? There are some more babies getting ready to start right there. Some more baby little tomatoes. Can you see those?
I can see it.
But that's okay. I'm still going to sacrifice them because I want a little bit more air circulation through here, and I don't want this to get too rangy, too overgrown, and too wild looking. I want it to look as if this composition was intentional. So it's another tailoring kind of thing. Now, I fully recognize that a lot of gardeners aren't like me, and they like the wild look. They like things being overgrown and at least in my world, a little bit overly lush. And that's okay. You do you. This is just me doing me and not letting my plants boss me. So I'll continue to do that on the tomatoes. I will continue to harvest peppers. I got a whole bunch of them yesterday, so I don't have, well, here's one. I've still got a few to pick. I've gotten already at least a large to smallish basket of peppers. I'll put this in my pocket. No, Stuart, you don't get it. I got a recipe.
I loved eating all the raw
tonight.
stuff when I had a garden.
I know, it's fun. It's
the
so fun to
funnest
pick it
part.
off. Now, do you recall the other day that I showed you that there was a really fun projectile coming out of here, and it was about, at that time, 5 to 6 inches long? That was 2 days ago. Look at how long it is. It has grown a minimum of 6 inches a day.
Wow.
That is the power
What
of
am I
heat,
smelling
light,
now
and
that you
sun.
moved that? I smell something.
It could be anything. It could be the here. Is it the peppers? Could even be the
smells
peppers.
sweeter
Could be,
than
I don't know. Could be just the fragrance of the flowers. But here is another one of those asparagus fern canes that's kind of new. And the asparagus fern also loves the heat. So when I planted up this box, I knew it was going to face the south and that it would get brutal exposure. So I planted things in here like the pineapple guava, like the peppers, like the Dusty Miller, that I knew really could handle these really extreme temperatures and sunlight. So that's, again, right plant, right place. That's another tip for extreme heat gardening. Let's go to the back for a minute, Stuart.
I'm going to follow you recording and we'll see if we can speed it up.
Okay. Good morning.
It's just kind of fun to see you walk through here, I think. Feels safer somehow.
Let's stop here for a minute.
Okay, and 3, 2.
Now, as we're walking down the path, this doesn't really have anything to do with hot weather gardening because I probably wouldn't be sitting out here when it's 100 degrees. Nevertheless, I wanted to show you the positioning of this. I had a void in this expanse from that end, following the path all the way to the gate. And I'm working on this expanse as I move to the backyard because that's kind of been my design philosophy. Front, then ultimately to the back. I switched out, as I told you earlier, the garden benches. I put the other wooden furniture in the front, on the front porch. And this one, I gifted the 2 chairs to my neighbor, and this one I placed right here because there actually might be a time in the cool of the morning or in the evening when I sit here just to watch the passers-by. Now, I like the way it looks here. I love the way it fills this space, and it's just a great solution to this void where I really don't want any more plant material here. But what we're going to do is we're going to even this out. I'm going to have some brick placed underneath these pavers so it looks as if it's sitting on little brick pilasters. And then probably what I will do when the temperature's cool is remove this grass and do probably some kind of brick throw rug or something underneath here so I don't have to weed eat or mow in the grass underneath it. Then it could be really, really sweet. I'm already envisioning in the spring, when all the azaleas are in bloom, when the hellebores I planted are in bloom, that I can then put a pot or a basket or something and place it right here. Maybe spring greens. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes,
Elegant and edible landscaping that I can set on this, and it will be just another vignette, which is one of the things about a small garden. Yes, some of your vignettes might be in impractical places, but sometimes you do it just to create beauty and to exercise your creativity. Whether it's really practical or not, then you can always remove it, because who knows if that idea might inspire something in someone else and you can share it. Now, it is still a holy mess back here. Do not judge me, but believe it or not, we're starting to make some progress. Look at my sweet little shed that I put there. It's up, and I love it. It's shallow enough. We did measure it shallow enough so when it rains, it clears any of the rainfall coming off of the roof. I still have yet to decide if I'm going to paint it or not, but it is assembled, it is in place, and Stuart, we need to remember to put a link
Looks good.
to that shed. But come back here, try not to trip on anything as I am playing with different design, hardscape design motifs for the back. Hubs has nixed the pavers in this composition. He didn't like them, so I will defer to him. And I'm still kind of thinking about it. Herringbone versus something else. Is it too much brick? I'm still working through that, but that's just how I rock and roll. Okay, so back to my thinking about the future, because this refers to having something to look forward to. So the minute it gets hot, what do we start looking forward to, Stuart?
I don't know, cold drinks.
Cold drink? Well, fall.
Fall, there we go.
So I'm already starting to think about fall and even Christmas. So I've put together, this used to be the bird bath that sat on the upside down table stand that was in the front yard. It does have drainage in it. So I decided to go ahead and plant it up for fall, where I will cantilever it on the wall of Autumn's Edge. But for right now, it doesn't really match the color palette, so I'm just keeping it over here so that it can really get large and start looking mature and putting on growth before I put it in a place of prominence this fall. It's also a little bit more protected back here, but it contains, Stuart, some of your favorite plants. Can we maybe get an overhead
Yeah, let me come over there.
view of this? Because remember how you just fell in love with some of this coleus.
Oh yeah, I've got the one I got right above
when
my
we
sink
went
at
to
home.
Brick's Garden Center. But look at how beautiful that looks. These are all very autumnal. So I planted the coleus.
Nature decided to be even more artistic when it made
Yes,
these.
yes. And I'm going to periodically pinch it.
Or abstract, maybe that was the word.
Yeah. It looks like a Jackson Pollock painting. Okay, so I'm going to continue to pinch it. So again, I'm getting better air circulation through here. I want it to fill out and get very full.
Now, where are you pinching? Let's show them.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, right here. I'm going to pinch this. I'm going to pinch it below that leaf node right there where the leaf meets the stem. I'm going to pinch it right there. Actually, it'd be better probably if I use scissors so it was a cleaner cut. But then I can take this inside and I can root it and I can gift it to my friend Stuart, who finds these just so fascinating. But the color sway of all of this is very harmonious. I think it looks very autumnal. And then I got some dwarf miniature Muhlenbeckia or wire vine that I got on sale at Lowe's. It was like $1 a piece, and normally this is hard to find and it's expensive. So I'm gonna do a fringe or a skirt of this all around the perimeter. Then this fall, I will tuck gourds and really fun things into this large saucer. And again, I will set it right on the edge of the two walls so that passers-by can see it and really appreciate it up close, unlike if I had it residing in kind of one of the garden beds. So that is my looking ahead during the heat of summer, having something to look forward to for fall. Now, having something to look forward to for winter, because I'm already starting to think about Christmas. So thinking about Christmas in July makes us feel cooler, just thinking about it. And I have to admit that this was also, I guess, kind of spawned because I got an email this past week from someone in my new neighborhood asking if I would be on the Christmas house tour for Mesta Park. And I told them, maybe stupidly, but I told them yes. So I am already thinking about measures inside and out that I want to take in preparation for this coming Christmas. And by then I may be naively optimistic, but by then I hope that the backyard will be complete, that we will have that finished by late fall. But in the meantime, look at these sweet little trees. Do you remember these sweet little trees?
I always will remember these
You
little
remember
trees.
these Blue Point junipers that I dug out, and when I dug them out, they were like this big.
They were tiny.
They were tiny. I shopped my garden. I dug up some Blue Point juniper volunteers from my old garden. I potted them up, and they have become little trees. Now, heretofore, they have been in pots about this size. But you can see how this one is starting to brown a little bit in the interior. It's not killing it, but it is struggling because this pot is just way too small. So they are getting a move up. They're getting a bigger pad. And so I've taken 2 of them at this point, actually 3 of them, out of a pot that was this size. I have this one remaining, and I am planting them up in these footed urns, and I'll start shaping them a little bit. This one, for example, needs a stake on it so that it will grow up straight and fly right. I am going to probably keep these tightly loose. Okay, that might be a contradiction in terms. I'm not going to topiary them, but I do want them to fill out a little bit and look a little bit fuller, a little bit more full. So that's what I'm doing with these. So that is my homage and my planning for both fall and winter as I work in this devastating heat and complete, I guess, complete thinking about the design of the backyard, which I think we're not going to do any more planting right now, but I think we are going to start working on maybe some of the hardscaping this week or maybe next week, depending. So there you go. There are some tips for you in hot weather gardening: how to mow, how to increase air circulation, how to make your lawn and garden look a little bit more tailored and a little less stressed in the heat of summer, and also some tips so that you don't completely be demoralized when it's this hot as a gardener, with some projects that help you think ahead. And if that's not the garden life, I don't know what is.
Oh, and I guess now we get to show them the part I didn't put in last week.
And yes,
So now
absolutely.
there's a
yeah.
nice ending.
Okay, so it's too hot, Stuart.
Let's go inside. There we go.
Stuart, before we leave this room, however, because I know people will ask, they've asked before, this runner I got off of eBay.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I have sourced most of my rugs, with the exception of some of the sisal or straw rugs. I had these custom made. They were actually custom made for the other house, but they worked in this house. And I just used a carpeting place here in Oklahoma City. And I really like the way they look, and I like the way that it really protects my floor, and the coloring of it is just brilliant. Now, you definitely have seen my kitchen before. I think one thing that strikes people, Stuart comments on it almost every time he walks in, and that is I not only like to have a house wine, which you guys saw me select, but I also like to have what I think of as house music. So whenever I am home, I have something playing, and some of my favorite things that I like to listen to are classical focus, because it's what I listen to when I work. I love Pink Martini. I love any kind of bistro kind of music, whether it's French cafe or Italian cafe. In the evening, I like to listen to the old goldies, so I'll put on the Tony Bennett radio station. I also love country western. I love Johnny Cash, and depending on how I'm entertaining or what mood I'm in, that will change. But I really like to have things that I consider to be house music, so that when people are greeted, they're not only greeted visually with my signature touches, but also I hope their other senses are engaged with my house music.
Y'all didn't know she was a DJ too, did you?
I don't know about that. But, okay, this rug, and this is my second question of the day for you. I love this rug. It's perfect in here. It looks absolutely brilliant with my massive painting of Monument Valley over here by the banquette. But one thing that has been a little bit difficult for me, even though it has blue tones in it, it does speak a little bit more fallish and wintry to me than it does summer. So I'm thinking about maybe having this as a seasonal item that I bring back in the fall when I want to engage more of these rusty tones and darker hues. And so I'm thinking about having made, in exactly this same size, another rug that would match the rug and the pattern that's in the parlor.
Which one?
Underneath the settee.
Okay.
Right there. And which also parenthetically matches what I've got in my bedroom and in the great room. This, I actually purchased this from a dear, dear friend, and I do love it. And by the way, what I love about it is its texture. It looks like it's needle pointed. And I've showed this before, but in case you're new to the channel, I'm using this on the reverse, because I really like this side better than this side. I think it looks a little bit more expensive and a little bit more contemporary. So, but let me know your thoughts.
Cool trick on that one.
Yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. The other reason that I've thought about changing it seasonally is more of the table linens and things that I want to use this time of year tend to be lighter, airier, in more of the blue, aqua, yellow, pink range. And that doesn't necessarily, I think, coordinate as well as I would like with this rug. But if I had more of a seasonal rug here that spoke more to spring and summer, that then my tablescapes might be a little bit more harmonious with the rest of the decor. So let me know your thoughts on that. It wouldn't, I would have to get, I'm not sure what it would cost for me to do that. And obviously then I would put this in storage. And one of the things that I think is so crucial to small space living, to cottage living, is that you do have items that you change out seasonally, so you don't feel as if you are stymied or suffocating in a small space. And that really changes it up, and I think gives you just a little kick in the pants and a little bit of motivation, seasonal motivation. So the table I got at Lit Fab, and it again took a while to get here, but I love the scale of it. My kids went crazy over it. And I think it really does that, where it bridges something that tends to be a little bit sleeker, a little bit more Scandinavian, but it bridges that line between that and traditional, I think, just beautifully. Of all things I have ever bought on Amazon, I have to tell you, this bench may be one of my favorite finds. In fact, I don't need another one, and I just want to get another one because I love it so much. And it is so beautiful. It is so sturdy.
It would make a good, like, by the front door bench if someone had room for that kind of a thing.
It very much would, and I might have to think about that because it would just make a great mudroom bench. I can think of a number of different ways. There's another color to this too.
And you would be surprised how comfortable it actually is.
Yeah, because, well, I'm sorry because I can't really show you this, but if you were really here in my house, you would feel that this is cushiony underneath it. Can you see this? Let me just demonstrate.
Yeah, you can see a little bit.
Yeah, it's cushiony under here. So it's very, very, very comfortable. I love it. And I also can easily move it out of the way if we're entertaining in the parlor and I want additional seating. It's very easy for me to place something like that there. I just love it. And it was completely accidental that it so beautifully matched the table. But I definitely will give you a link to this. It was a no-brainer to put together. I did it myself. I also put together this little end chair here. And this is what I typically sit at if I'm just in the kitchen watching TV by myself, or I'm planning menus or whatever.
You're blocking the chair.
This is where, oh, sorry. This is where I will sit.
It's a cool little chair.
And I also bought this online and put it together myself. This was a little bit harder for me than that one was to put together. And if you're wondering, doesn't Hubs ever put stuff together? No, Hubs does not. That is not in his wheelhouse. He has many talents, but putting things together is in my wheelhouse, not in his. And it's not really that much in mine. Okay, so now
furniture, though.
The other thing, yes, the other thing, and he's Traveler, if you ever want somebody to help you make travel plans or know anything about any place in the world, any river in the world, that's my husband's business because he could help you there. So this corner, one thing very disappointingly to me is that they missed a storage opportunity when they redid this house because these are not open. So at some point, I will probably have these modified so I can have storage underneath them. All of these pillows I had at the other house. They just were in different locations, but I think they look great here. If I change out the rug seasonally, then I might also get some pillows that might be a little bit more blue in hue or something, or just remove these entirely. I'm not really sure. I love this basket. This type of basket weave is one that was everywhere in Bali when we went to Singapore. And then we went to Bali after my older son got married, and I just love this piece. I bought it online in addition to several smaller pieces that were more packable that I was able to get while we were in Bali. This, and let me explain a little bit about this book. Okay, I recommended this book to you. It was on Amazon. There were very few copies. This is a really old book, you guys. So if you can find it, it is typically just pennies on the dollar until I recommend it. And then there's interest in it, and somebody then told me, oh, now it's $93, or so somebody was trying to sell one for $93. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Just wait a little while and try to find it again, or try to find it at a used bookstore, because I do love this book. And this is where I sit to get these kind of ideas, where I can do something else that I love to do, and that is thrift my own closet or shop my own closet. Yes, Stuart has been nibbling at all of these gorgeous berries, very, very seasonal. And I got that idea from looking at this tablescape. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have a couple, actually I have 4 footed containers like this that I typically use for candles. But how great do they look there?
Delicious.
With fruit in them. I mean, isn't that just brilliant? And then I also have some old thrift store bowls that I got that I could use just spilling over for fruit. This would just be so great for a tablescape for a brunch or 4th of July, or if you had visiting guests. I think that would just be spectacular, especially now when fruit is less expensive. It's seasonal, less expensive than it normally is. And then, because of course I always, since this is the garden life after all, I had to do a little homage to the outdoors, and so I clipped a couple of things from my Takes the Cake Southern Living blueberry plants in front, and I like this little appointment. I sacrificed these blueberries because it just looks so charming. I mean, look at that. Doesn't that just make you happy, seeing that shadow right
That is
there?
cool, yeah.
It just makes me happy.
It's the little things.
Yeah, it is the little things. And then obviously if I was really putting together, this would be perfect for a brunch. Or if you're giving a wedding shower or a baby shower, something like this would just be a beautiful, beautiful way to decorate your table. And then, even though it's brunch, you may not necessarily have candles lit, but I just had to do it just for you. You guys know I love my tapers, and this is just one. I sometimes will break up sets, and this is just one of a set of IKEA glass candlesticks that I got thrifting. Well, there may be hot weather gardening, but there's also things I think of as hot weather projects. And I was very embarrassed for you to see the horror that were my bulletin boards in our last home tour. And so now I've got something to motivate me to redo my bulletin boards. Excuse me, I probably had a bug in my throat left over from outside. But before I do, I'm gonna remake this with some of my fall and Christmas inspiration, since I told you that I perhaps unwisely agreed to do the neighborhood Christmas tour.
It's gonna be
but
great.
before I remove some of these, I'm going to show you some of my inspiration picks I may not have shown you before. I love, love, love this. And I will, once my back is finished, I definitely will recreate that in my backyard. I love that. And isn't this fabulous? And speaking of hot weather gardening, all of these are hot weather plants.
Yeah,
So that's
nice.
just beautiful. Lots of sedum autumn joy, purple coneflower.
That's a marble edge on
What do we have in the back?
The edge of that pool's marble. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
That's fancy.
Anyhow, it's absolutely beautiful, and this is an inspiration pick. So if you still are
That's
into
beautiful,
thinking about summer gardening, this is a wonderful tableau. So I had that there because it reminds me a little bit of how the front yard is developing. Okay, so I'm going to remove the things that are in the front. And I'm just going to completely, because sometimes when you clean out a drawer, they tell you to dump everything out. So that's what I'm going to do here. But look at this. A follower sent that. Isn't that dear? Mm-hmm. So that's been on my bulletin board. And so I'm just going to remove all of this. This is a flyer for Better Boxwood, the Blight Fighter. I love it. And next year, these blight-resistant varieties, mostly what I have in the front is Renaissance and Skylight. I have a few Heritage, but mostly Renaissance and Skylight. Those are what
comprise the boxwood village. Okay, so I'm going to move all of these out and take them off, and I probably need my little step ladder to get. In fact, Stuart, you just stay there.
Showing the step
I
ladder.
have my little lightweight step ladder. I think I got this at IKEA. This was an acquisition recommended by John Turman. And then this is the original plan for the front yard, and you can see how some of it is the same and some of it is different. So this is kind of the same down here with all of those boxwood balls, the trees. The edge, the boxwood edge, did not turn out to be as formal. Instead, it's more like boxwood villages, and I ixnayed these side paths because there just wasn't enough room. But nevertheless, there's the upper terrace, the lower terrace, all circumscribed by beautiful brick with lots of topiary, and so it's fun. So I'm probably going to leave this here for right now. But the fun part is I have started going through some of my old magazines, my old holiday magazines, or some of the things in my tear sheet file, and looking for inspirational images, primarily for Christmas right now. So this might be Christmas, this might end up being fall, that speak to me, so that as I go through these next few months, if I see something that speaks to these images that I still need to acquire, then I can. So like this is one of the images, since I'm getting more into blue and chartreuse, and it's got a topiary-esque quality, and I really, really love this. So right now,
Is that a mirror behind it?
It's a mirror behind it.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's a really old mirror. So yeah, so this tells me, okay, maybe I could have a small tree like this in front of the mirror that is in that little bar area when you walk in. At any rate, this is an idea that I am playing with. This is actually, doesn't speak to Christmas, but it does speak to a way I might wrap some packages. So these are all just inexpensive baskets that have all been painted one coordinated color. And so I may use that in some fashion. It would be fun to have all of these in a certain color and then all filled with different kinds of pine cones and berries as a decor item or for gifts or whatever. So that's another idea I'm kind of just playing with. Again, I will put all of this in a much more organized fashion. I have had this on my bulletin board for I don't know how long. I used to do sugared fruit a lot. I have a tiered cake plant stand just like that. And I think it's from Horowitz. My mom gave it to me. And I just haven't done sugared fruit in a while. So, in tonals, red, garnet, things like that for Christmas.
No one ever did sugar fruit in my life. So
Nobody.
what is sugar fruit?
How do you do sugar fruit?
Is it just dipping fruit in sugar?
No.
Okay.
You take fruit and you wash it really, really well, let it dry, and then you give it an egg wash, and then you sprinkle super fine sugar on it, and then you let it dry, and it looks very crystalline. This wouldn't be an arrangement that would be long lasting, but look, isn't it beautiful? And it's got little gardenias. Maybe by then I'll still have some gardenias blooming. So anyhow, I'm just looking at different things in case I decide to do an unusual color palette.
Well, let me show them that. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's kind of neat. Look at that chandelier.
Yeah, isn't that fun? So I just may do different things. I love these, you guys. So as you're out hiking, as you're out doing summer activities, always look for interesting pine cones. And I love these, the way the pine cones have slim ribbon attached with tiny little colored baubles. Can you see that I need a manicure?
Oh, I wasn't zooming into it.
So anyhow,
I wasn't going to zoom in on your fingernail.
I love that. And then because I have just a few pieces of blue and white, I promise I'm not going to bore you with all of these. But look at the way they've taken their blue and white pieces
And they've Christmasized them.
Red and green.
Yeah, winterized them by putting some of that beautiful greenery in there. And then this is another thing. I promise this is my last one. This is another thing I haven't done in a long time, and because I used to do it a lot when my boys were little, and recently I haven't done it as much. But these are spectacular, and I will make these.
So wait, do you eat sugar fruit?
No, you don't want to eat it.
Oh, okay.
You could,
Interesting.
but
It's a heck of a
eat it?
name
Eat-
to
yeah,
not want to be
yeah,
eaten.
yeah, I mean, I guess technically you could, but it's got raw egg white on it, so I
Okay.
probably wouldn't. But isn't this scrumptious? Isn't that just scrumptious?
My mind's still on sugar fruit.
I love
obviously, so-
clove. Yes, you are. We've moved on, Stuart. We've moved on to clove-studded citrus, and this is
Oh, we did this.
yeah, this is incredible.
I love the way this smelled.
Yep. We have done that before, but we haven't done it in a while. So those are just a few of the things that are going to be living on my Christmas bulletin board. This one will probably be autumn, will probably be fall, because when it's really, really hot, what do you want to do? You need something to keep you moving forward and thinking about the next season of your garden life.